Single dad CEO's life changed forever when his daughter's heartfelt request exposed an incredible economic divide. Jack Thompson, a single dad at 38, had built a life of relentless ambition, pouring every ounce of energy into his burgeoning tech startup. But on this night, at his kitchen table, surrounded by the warmth of homemade pancakes, a familiar sound jolted him from his thoughts: his daughter Lily's innocent voice. "Dad, can we do something special for the kids at my school who don't have enough?" The query pierced through the comfortable haze of their routine, unsettling Jack. It echoed louder than any corporate conference call, revealing the stark contrast between their bubble of prosperity and the struggles of others around them. Jack's heart clenched at the sudden awareness he had long avoided. Success had consumed him. The chase for profit made his life a hamster wheel spinning faster and faster. He raked his fingers through his hair, internally grappling with the bittersweet twist of his daughter's altruistic spirit. Did she know that as much as he wanted to indulge her heart's desire, his world was steeped in judgments about what mattered more: financial security or kindness? The thought propelled him into an emotional whirlwind. He could satisfy her hopes and face the pressures of judgment from his colleagues, or stay true to the ladder he was climbing, preserving the stability he fought so hard for. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jack and Lily set out to organize the fundraiser, the magnitude of their undertaking became palpable. Excitement buzzed in the air, but waves of skepticism from his business associates soon crashed into their enthusiasm. "What are you trying to do, Jack? Dive into some kind of charity project?" They scoffed, bemused by his shift from bottom line to community focus. Their laughter echoed in his mind, blurring the lines between right and wrong. Their pursuit of profit felt suffocating, drowning out the voice of reason in him that Lily sparked. Could he allow himself to embrace vulnerability in front of those who expected him to lead with cold, financial logic? This confusion intensified when he discovered unsettling information about a trusted associate. A friend who reveled in financial gain had entangled himself in ventures that preyed on the less fortunate. Each shocking revelation gnawed at him, pushing Jack closer to a moral crisis that collided with his ambitions. If he confronted this betrayal, would he risk not just his reputation, but also the life he structured for Lily? His muscles tensed, and a lump formed in his throat as he contemplated the depths of corporate greed. Jack stood at the precipice, muscles taut with determination yet weighed down by fear. He had chased a dream that felt increasingly hollow as Lily's innocent ideals collided with the harsh realities of adulthood. Were his sacrifices worth it if he risked losing the very integrity he wanted to impart to her? With conflict raging within him, loyalty versus morality, he felt the suffocating constraints of expectation tighten further. He hesitated, grappling with the fleeting moment of clarity that urged him to confront the shadows of his world. Would he emerge broken but resolute, or would the chains of his career bind him in silence? The uncertainty loomed heavy, as the fate of both their worlds danced on the edge of a knife, teetering on the brink of a decision that could change everything forever. Jack felt a disquieting swell of anxiety as the days unfolded. He spent sleepless nights tossing, pondering the implications of his forthcoming decision. Every morning started with Lily's hopeful smile, a jolt of brightness piercing the persistent fog of uncertainty. It fueled a fire within him, igniting a desire not just to act, but to lead by example. He found himself questioning his own motives. Did he want to help because it was right, or because he feared the judgment of his peers? One crisp morning, Jack stood in front of a mirror, the sunlight streaming through the kitchen window casting a warm glow on his weary face. He searched for answers in his reflection, weighing his aspirations against his growing responsibility to Lily and the larger community. This moment of vulnerability was rare for him, a fleeting encounter with sincerity beneath the weight of his corporate facade. Deciding to confront his associate was easier said than done. Jack rehearsed the conversation countless times, his palms cold and clammy with anticipation. He had a reputation as a tough negotiator, not someone who would indulge in matters of morality. Yet what was this if not a negotiation of the soul? The thought alone was unsettling, yet invigorating. The boardroom felt sterile, an arena for conflicts he usually thrived in, yet this time, the stakes were markedly different. He had his laptop open, showing impressive statistics that illuminated the potential of their operations. But now, an unsettling reality seeped in: the profits were being generated at the expense of ethical practices. He glanced at Mark, the very associate he had come to confront, who sat casually, unaware of the brewing storm. "Mark, can you explain this partnership with the microloan agency?" Jack started, clearing his throat, his voice steadied by determination. The conversation took a sharp turn as Mark glossed over the ethical concerns, defending what he dubbed necessary sacrifices for growth. Jack felt his blood boil. How casually Mark bestowed his moral responsibilities aside to chase fleeting gains. "I can't let this slide anymore," Jack found himself saying before he realized how far he had gone. "These decisions impact people's lives. You might think it's just numbers on a balance sheet, but it's not." His voice broke slightly, the vulnerability surprising him. Mark raised an eyebrow, a mixture of confusion and amusement flickering across his face. "Jack, this is business. You don't get to be sentimental about people if you want to survive in this competitive world." Challenged yet invigorated by Mark's dismissal, Jack felt a ferocious sense of clarity galvanizing within him. "Then maybe I don't want to be a part of this kind of business." That revelation hung heavily in the air. A groundbreaking decision rippled outward, tethering his past ambitions to this very moment. He envisioned Lily's exuberance guiding him, a reminder to bring hope to the table, rather than indulgence. But with such clarity came the realization that every step away from this dark world would create backlash. His position, his income, his security all rested precariously on his willingness to stand against the tide. As the confrontation came to an unexpected close, Jack felt a blend of anticipation and fear. What had he unleashed? Walking away, unsure of the ramifications, he understood that he had strategically unwound the tightly woven fabric of his career. The wind outside stirred, a fresh breeze reflecting the upheaval inside him. Could he forge ahead, risk everything for integrity, while still providing for Lily? In this moment of depth, he took a breath. A turning point had been reached, but uncertainty loomed large. As he sat on the park bench later with Lily, watching her chase after butterflies, a deep sense of responsibility blossomed in him. But with each bounce of her laughter, a new urgency unfurled. The time had come to make a more decisive stand. What if he initiated a venture that upended everything he had known while ultimately aligning with the values he wished to instill in Lily? It was a daunting thought, and yet an exhilarating one, beckoning him toward a path less traveled and fraught with peril. But beneath the intimidation lay an unmistakable thrill waiting to be embraced. Could he step into a new role, one of healing instead of hollow victory, and truly change the narrative that governed his life? His heart raced as he contemplated this new direction. Jack realized he stood at another brink and sensed that soon, he'd have to take that leap. The soft laughter of Lily mingled with the burgeoning winds of change, a reminder of what was at stake. Would he leverage his skills to confront not only individuals in his life but the entire corporate landscape? The question hung in the air, heavy with promise, weaving strands of hope for both him and Lily. The following days were a blur of anxiety and determination for Jack. Every morning, he awoke with Lily's laughter echoing in his mind, a stark contrast to the unease gnawing at his gut. He couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to irrevocably change. He had crossed an invisible line, voicing his discontent in the boardroom, and the implications clung to him like a second skin. Would he really have the courage to pursue a new venture, one that aligned more with his values than his previous role ever could? As he sat at the kitchen table the next day, staring at spreadsheets and projections, he realized that his fear was no longer about losing a job or income. It was about abandoning the chance to transform his life. He took a deep breath, resigning himself to the necessity of crafting a plan. It felt like stepping into a storm, exhilarating yet terrifying. Jack hit the ground running, researching social enterprises and sustainability efforts, something he had previously dismissed as inefficient. As he combed through success stories, he became captivated by how other entrepreneurs leveraged their businesses for social impact. They created platforms that not only sought profit but made systemic changes. Fueled by newfound optimism, he pulled out an old leather notebook and began drafting ideas for his own venture. He envisioned a consultancy that focused on ethical business practices, inspiring corporations to prioritize people alongside profits. Could he create a brand that was both profitable and principled? The vision was intoxicating, yet the practicalities loomed large. What if no one took him seriously? Jack felt a familiar discomfort, the fear of public opinion, the echoes of Mark's words that had haunted him since their confrontation. But as uncertainty crowded his mind, he remembered Lily's face, her innocent belief that the world could be a fairer place. The thought ignited a sense of purpose within him. The next step was to pool talent and resources. Jack reached out to former colleagues who had left the corporate grind for similar reasons. He was surprised by the eagerness some displayed, the shared urgency pulsing in their conversations. They met at a coffee shop, and Jack laid out his vision, explaining the dangers of pursuing profit at the expense of ethics. Each person contributed zeal, and soon, what was once a solitary notion had blossomed into a shared ambition. After that meeting, Jack found himself working late into the night, fueled by passion and caffeine. His self-doubt retreated, replaced by the electric thrill of collaboration. He created presentations and drafted proposals, weaving moral imperatives seamlessly into business strategies. A warmth radiated through him as he began to see how his ideas could catalyze real change. However, the deeper he delved, the more he began to feel the weight of the corporate world pressing down on him. Each success on the planning side seemed to coax Mark's derision back into the forefront of his mind. What if everyone was right, the world was unforgiving? Was he truly prepared for the inevitable backlash? As the week progressed, fear and excitement danced in tandem. The more he ventured into this new territory, the more he understood that changing the corporate landscape would not be a simple task. It demanded relentless resolve and the ability to weather storms that would inevitably follow his choices. On a Friday afternoon, while preparing for a crucial pitch, Jack received an unexpected call from Mark. "I hear you've been making some waves," Mark said, a note of amusement underlining his voice. "Hope you know what you're getting into." Jack's heart raced. This conversation could either undermine his efforts or provide a unique opportunity to challenge Mark further. "I'm aiming for something that matters, Mark, not just profits. Are you willing to listen?" He responded, his voice steady, fighting against the tension in the air. "Listen?" Mark scoffed, but Jack sensed an edge beneath the skepticism. "I'm not sure that's a skill I'm willing to entertain." One thing was clear: Jack had stepped into the arena. The opponent was not just Mark or the corporate machinery, it was an entire mindset entrenched in prioritizing profit over morality. What Jack didn't yet realize was how interconnected his past and future had become. And as he navigated this new world, filled with stakes higher than he ever anticipated, he felt the thrill of transformation stirring within him, urging him forward. But as a sense of urgency enveloped him, Jack stood at another precipice. Would he enlist Mark's experience as an ally, or would this confrontation turn into a war of beliefs that could undermine everything he sought to build? The upcoming battle loomed, and with it, the defining moment of his journey, a choice that would shape not just his future but that of Lily as well. Jack stared at the blank screen, the glow of his laptop lighting the dim room. His heart raced, a crescendo of emotions playing in the pit of his stomach. The conversation with Mark echoed in his mind like a persistent drumbeat, stirring doubts and instilling a sense of urgency. The stakes were high. With every tick of the clock, Jack felt the weight of his decisions bear down on him, threatening to crush the very dream he had begun to construct. He redirected his focus. Instead of letting the anxiety spiral, he took a moment to breathe deeply. Clarifying his vision was imperative, but the conversation had punctuated a harsh reality: success in this arena demanded not just vision but tenacity and strategy. He jotted down every fragment of thought that coursed through him, creating a roadmap to his goals. The next morning, he gathered his collaborators again. He communicated his aspirations with renewed clarity. "We're not just creating a consultancy, we're pioneering a movement, something that challenges the status quo," he declared. Their energy matched his own, and their excitement sparked ideas that flew around the room like wildfire. Yet amidst this wave of inspiration, Jack could feel the shadow of Mark looming in his mind. Would they flounder when faced with adversity? As plans solidified, Jack immersed himself in market research, seeking any evidence that could lend credence to his concept. The more he learned about successful ethical companies, the clearer his path became. He found solace in the stories of others who had faced dismissal and skepticism, yet emerged victorious. He wasn't alone. History was filled with trailblazers who had stood firm against the tide of traditional practices. But then, ominous thoughts crept in, gnawing on his resolve. What if he promised too much? Each lofty aspiration could set him up for failure. The idea of reaching out to Mark for support, it felt like condoning a betrayal to his ideals. But Jack wrestled with the notion, could he really discard Mark's knowledge? Or would seeking Mark's advice be admitting defeat before the fight had even begun? Jack's days morphed into an intense cycle of drafting proposals, researching market trends, and developing strategies that resonated with the very principles he sought to embody. Even as he immersed himself, the remnants of his past career whispered caution, tempting him to reconsider. Lily believes in you. Her innocent faith rang in his ears during moments of doubt. Her unwavering trust breathed life into his tenacity. Yet beneath that motivation, vulnerability thickened the air around him. He had sacrificed the stability of a job he had loathed for the promise of something greater. Could he stand robust against the fierce winds that would surely challenge him? By the end of the week, adrenaline surged through his veins like molten steel. He felt alive but also unsteady. Each completed proposal brought him one step closer to his vision, yet every signature of approval carried the weight of risk. During those sleepless nights, Jack realized it was more than just a venture, it was a reflection of who he wanted to become. This transformative journey was beginning to chip away at the layers of his former self, leaving behind a raw, vulnerable man ensnared in a greater conflict. The integration of his ethics into his work brought tangible excitement but also a sharp realization there was no going back. Failure now bore deeper consequences, not just for him but for Lily too. In the quiet moments, balancing the tension of impending decisions, he found clarity. Jack understood that he needed to face Mark fully armed with both his vision and courage. The essence of his confrontation would not just be about enlisting an ally, it would be a defining test of his belief in the greater good, against not just Mark's rationale but the very essence of the corporate ethos that had shackled him. But as Jack prepared to send the email for a meeting, a sense of foreboding washed over him. Was he ready for the conversation that would unfold? It wasn't merely about business, it was a clash of convictions that would reverberate through both their lives. As Jack clicked the send button, a shiver ran down his spine. The die was cast, and the moment of truth loomed ahead. Would Mark's response ignite a flame of collaboration or plunge Jack into a fierce confrontation that could derail everything he aimed to build? The uncertainty thickened the air around him, and with it, the realization sank deeper. This was merely the beginning of a battle, one that would determine not just his future, but Lily's as well. Jack awoke the following day to a stream of sunlight piercing through the curtains, illuminating a room that hadn't fully recovered from the chaos of the previous night's emotional whirlwind. His heart was still racing, but the remnants of uncertainty from sending the email hung heavily in the air. The anticipation clawed at him, demanding a resolution. Would he hear from Mark today? What if the response revealed deep-seated truths he wasn't prepared to face? With each passing hour, Jack tried to focus on the tasks at hand, but his eyes frequently drifted toward the laptop screen. Even mundane emails and research felt challenging, as his mind was consumed with thoughts of the meeting. He had envisioned this conversation many times, constructing different scenarios. Mark's dismissive smirk, perhaps a patronizing tone. But he also contemplated the possibility of a surprising enthusiasm, a willingness to delve into the potential of collaborative synergy. Still, there was a nagging voice whispering doubts, replaying moments of dismissive judgment from their past encounters. Eventually, Jack decided to take action. Instead of succumbing to inaction, he refocused on the project, pouring his energy into refining the vision he hoped to present, clarifying its purpose and ethics, shaping the future he wanted to see. He spent hours mapping flowcharts, drafting potential business models, and solidifying his thoughts into concise PowerPoints. Every added hour spent engaged in the work was a step towards self-definition and a rebellion against the past he had sought to escape. Around midday, a ping from his laptop startled him. It was an email from Mark. Jack's breath hitched as he opened it. The tone was more neutral than he anticipated. Mark acknowledged the request for a meeting and suggested a time that felt both convenient and daunting. Jack's stomach churned. Why was he hesitating? Was it fear of confrontation or fear of enlightenment? Would success in this endeavor require Jack to compromise a core part of his vision? As he prepared notes for their meeting, Jack's internal conflict deepened. He felt the weight of every scraped knee from Lily's journey, every limitless potential he had vowed to nurture. He needed to protect not just his professional aspirations but also the moral framework he wished to cultivate for his daughter. Throughout the afternoon, the kernel of dread morphed into determination. He rehearsed potential dialogues in his mind, focusing on clarity and assertiveness. Would Mark question the viability of Jack's approach? Would he attempt to steer him back towards traditional paths? No, Jack had resolved that he would stand firm in his beliefs, seeking common ground without sacrificing his ethics. When the time finally came, Jack sat in front of his laptop, waiting for the video call to initiate. He could feel the clench of anxiety gripping his stomach, yet intertwined with it was something sharper focus. He closed his eyes for a moment, mentally adjusting his perspective. This wasn't just a meeting, it was a discourse on vision, an invitation to confront his fears. As the call connected, Jack was greeted by Mark's familiar but inscrutable face. He bid him a polite greeting before Jack plunged into the heart of their discussion. He spoke passionately about his intention to redefine business morals, and how he envisioned their combined strengths could lead to transformative change. Mark's demeanor shifted as Jack articulated his vision. Jack could feel the atmosphere shift. Mark was as intrigued as he was skeptical. Their conversation unfolded, each exchange of ideas, a test of beliefs. But suddenly, a pivotal question slipped into the conversation. Mark leaned in, a piercing gaze locking onto Jack's. Are you prepared to face the consequences of your ideas? Jack hesitated. That question reverberated through his mind like a bell toll. Was he truly prepared? Suddenly, the meeting was no longer just about business strategy, it was a defining moment for both men. As the conversation grew more intense, Jack realized it. Wasn't merely about his consultancy. It was about the larger battleground of ethical integrity in a world resistant to change. The implications loomed larger than ever. Could he challenge a system that had always favored conformity? With newfound resolve coursing through him, Jack leaned forward, ready to confront the potential fallout of his aspirations. But just as he felt the tide beginning to shift, Mark posed another question that cut straight through the bravado Jack had mustered. I get the ethics, Jack, but what are you willing to lose to make this work? That question dangled in the air, poised to tip the scales of Jack's destiny. Would he embrace the challenges ahead, or would fear tether him to comfort? At that moment, Jack realized the true test had only just begun. The silence that followed Mark's question reverberated in the confines of Jack's mind, blanketing him with a weight heavier than any he had ever felt. What was he willing to lose? The mere notion sent tremors through his thought process. Was he just playing at a proverbial game of chess, unaware that every pawn he sacrificed could lead to an inevitable checkmate of his own making? Jack's heart raced as he tried to navigate the labyrinth of his own values, losses, and potential victories. Mark's eyes searched for sincerity. He sensed Jack's uncertainty. Jack recovered from the mental fog, forcing his thoughts to coalesce. The consequences danced like shadows at the fringes of his consciousness, each representing a facet of his dreams, his daughter's future, and the ethical pillars he hoped to uphold. I'm willing to risk a lot, Jack finally found his voice, steady but uncertain. But I need to understand what that means in real terms. Changes could cost me financially, and it might alienate relationships that matter to me professionally. But what if I'm wrong? What if this ethical boundary I'm trying to protect could sabotage my potential? Mark nodded. He could sense the struggle within Jack, the wrestling match between ambition and integrity. Those are valid considerations, he affirmed, his tone shifting to a mentor's cadence. But every decision carries risk. Identifying what's essential to you isn't just about weighing monetary loss or professional isolation. It goes deeper, Jack. Jack reframed Mark's words in his mind, debating their implications. As the conversation shifted to strategies, Jack was acutely aware of the fine line between ambition and ethical compromise. This was no short-term project, it was a long-term crusade for a philosophy he believed could redefine business success. Hours melted into minutes as they dissected every angle of Jack's vision. Bit by bit, Jack's confidence surged, fueled by a sense of purpose driving every statement. He dared to propose innovative ideas that bled into the practical sustainable products, transparent supply chains, and community-driven profit models. With each idea he expressed, an invisible thread tied him closer to the very essence of his aspirations. He felt the bounds of potential breaking free, piece by piece, with every sentence. Yet, lurking beneath his expressed bravado was a flicker of reality that threatened to extinguish his newfound fire. Was he prepared to stand alone if it came down to that? He thought about Lily's bright eyes and the world he wished to build for her, a world where integrity and success could coexist. The thought fortified his resolve. "I'll embrace the risks," Jack declared, his voice stronger than it had been at the outset. "I want to push forward with this idea, even if it means having difficult conversations with people in my network. If I have to step outside their comfort zones, that's a price I'm willing to pay. But I want to ensure I'm not leaving integrity behind." Mark leaned back slightly, a flicker of respect crossing his face. "That's a start, Jack. Recognizing the tension between personal values and business is pivotal. But be prepared for the fallout, because not everyone will embrace this journey." Every word concerned Jack. He was stirring the pot, inciting reactions that could lead to turmoil. But as he packed up for the day, a sense of exhilaration overtook the previous anxiety. The potential for growth was intoxicating. He realized he was no longer navigating a path designed solely for professional achievement. He was carving out the ideal landscape for both himself and for Lily. That evening, Jack reflected on the implications of his conversation. He knew he had taken a significant step not just in his career, but in understanding his place within a framework that stretched beyond mere profits and losses. His phone vibrated, shaking him from his reverie. A message from Lily. "Dad, when are we going to build our story?" The blunt innocence of her words struck him. His unconditional commitment to redefining success was inextricable from his responsibilities as a father. Resilience sparked anew within him. The next steps in this journey would not be easy, but everything hung in the balance. The choices he made would determine not only his fate but the legacy he wished to leave behind for Lily. And as the day came to a close, he realized that while his exterior was firm, his internal compass was just beginning to align itself toward authenticity. The looming question remained: could he build this new narrative while also being true to himself and the people he cared about, or would he have to navigate the treacherous waters of betrayal to arrive at the future he envisioned? Jack awoke the next morning with an energy that felt both alien and invigorating. Dreaming of the conversations he had with Mark, he couldn't shake Lily's message from his mind. It was like a siren call prompting him toward action and realization. Today couldn't merely be another day in the office. It needed to symbolize the first bold step toward the legacy he aspired to create. After a quick breakfast, he dropped Lily off at school, planting a kiss on her forehead as he looked into her hopeful eyes. "I promise, Pumpkin. We're going to build our story together," he vowed, feeling the weight of those words more profoundly than ever. At the office, Jack sat at his desk, glancing at the notes he had feverishly scribbled during the previous day's discussion with Mark. As he read, an idea began to crystallize. He realized that if he were going to navigate his path courageously, he needed allies. The mere possibility of embarking on this quest without support was beginning to feel daunting. His first priority was to have a conversation with his closest colleague, Meredith. She was not just a brilliant strategist, she was deeply attuned to the shifts in the market and their company's culture. Her insights could provide a crucial perspective. Jack took a deep breath before dialing her number, reminding himself of the structure he wanted to form between his professional life and his newly charted course. "Hey, Meredith, do you have a moment?" he asked, trying to keep the tremor from his voice. Absolutely. What's on your mind? She replied, her enthusiasm evident even through the phone. I've been reevaluating our current direction, and I think it's time to consider a new approach, one grounded in transparency and sustainability, Jack said, feeling excitement swell as he spoke the words aloud. There was a pause. He anticipated her skepticism, the branding fears nagging at both their minds. Are you suggesting a pivot? That could affect our current relationships, Jack. What about our investors? Exactly. Jack exclaimed, heart pounding. We need to embrace the discomfort. But if we put our values first, I believe we can redefine what success means for us, and still attract the right partners. Meredith's silence was palpable. He could almost envision her processing this. You have to remember, we might lose some people in the industry who won't align with this shift. Are you ready for that? Jack's fingers drummed on the table. It was a challenge wrapped in a cautionary tale, but he was determined. I am, he finally answered, seeing the image of a flourishing business that stood by its principles. If we don't take this gamble, we risk losing our integrity more than anything else. When he hung up, Jack felt a hunger for progress unwaveringly gnawing at him. He wasn't just daydreaming, he was preparing to execute a plan in real life. But the recognition of his conviction was also met with anxiety. What if this courageous step cost him when the time came to put it into action? Moments later, a noise interrupted his thoughts. The buzz of an email arrived, capturing his attention. It was a one-liner invitation for a networking event being hosted by a powerful local investment firm. Should he attend? The impulse to showcase his vision was strong, but so was the fear of potential backlash for his approach. As he weighed the possibilities, a realization struck him. This could be his moment to face the very skepticism around which he had been tiptoeing. Could he pitch his ideas? This was both exhilarating and terrifying. The decision took form, coalescing in his mind like a powerful storm ready to unleash. Jack inhaled sharply. He wouldn't just attend, he would commit to presenting his vision. Yet, beneath that resolve, doubt whispered that he might provoke opposition from influential stakeholders used to the status quo. If he stood up, vulnerable and seeking support, would he still be a lone warrior fighting a misplaced battle, or would he find unexpected allies standing with him? With clarity and trepidation, Jack tapped yes on the RSVP. The path ahead unfurled like a twisting road riddled with secret obstacles. Would he transform the impending confrontation into an opportunity for collective growth, or would he face isolation, challenged by those who couldn't accept his vision? As he contemplated his next steps, Jack's heart raced, knowing the journey was just beginning. In this dance of ambition, integrity, and familial love, a monumental reckoning awaited him that would reshape everything he had known. Jack arrived at the networking event with a burbling mix of anticipation and anxiety. The venue hummed with voices, laughter, and the clinking of glasses, yet amid the chic decor, Jack felt like an outsider peering into a world he yearned to influence. Each successful entrepreneur milling about showcased the very essence of confidence that he aspired to embody. His mind raced with the possibilities. A well-prepared pitch could resonate with potential investors, yet doubt crept in like an uninvited guest. What if his vision was dismissed outright? What if he faced ridicule instead of understanding? He tightened his grip on the strap of his messenger bag, feeling the reassuring weight of the carefully crafted presentation within. Hey, Jack. A familiar voice broke through his spiraling thoughts. It was Sarah, a former colleague who had always shown kindness toward him. She approached with a radiant smile, bringing about a sense of comfort amidst the crowd. Good to see you. What are you doing here? Jack asked, more thankful for her presence than he let on. I'm trying to connect with some new investors. I hear your company is moving in an exciting direction, she replied, eyeing him curiously. Jack felt a swell of pride mixed with vulnerability. I'm trying to present a vision centered around sustainability and authenticity in business. Wow, that sounds bold. Sarah nodded, her enthusiasm genuine. Have you had a chance to pitch yet? No, not yet, he admitted, feeling the weight of the moment pressing down on him. But the thought of standing up there? It's intimidating. Intimidating can be a good thing, she encouraged. It means you're stepping out of your comfort zone. Just remember why you're doing this. Her words anchored him, filtering through the chaos in his mind. He was doing this for his daughter, for himself, and for the legacy that shimmered just within reach. With the encouragement still warming him, Jack began to circulate. He carefully observed the crowd, analyzing how others engaged in conversations, their body language, and their methods of persuasion. He noted a few folks clustering by the event's main speaker, a nationally recognized expert on sustainable finance. The speaker's passion was palpable, and Jack felt a flicker of inspiration. Minutes later, the time came for the presentations. He watched as various entrepreneurs took the stage and delivered their pitches. Some dazzled with statistics, others told stories that tugged at heartstrings. Each pitch ignited a competitive fire in Jack, underscoring how essential it was that he conveyed his vision authentically. When his turn finally arrived, his legs felt like jelly as he stepped onto the stage. The lights illuminated his face, and the audience's gaze bore down on him. He cleared his throat, momentarily paralyzed by a rush of self-doubt. But then he heard Lily's voice in his head, a gentle reminder of the promise he made. Lasting success comes when we prioritize integrity and sustainability, he began, the conviction returning like a surge of adrenaline. As he leaned into his presentation, weaving his narrative around strategic choices that placed values over profits, he noticed subtle nods of agreement from the audience. This was a community he aimed to belong to, a community that could align with his vision. Yet just as Jack settled into the rhythm of his pitch, a voice rang out from the audience. "What you're saying sounds nice, but how do you plan to convince your investors? This sounds more like a dream than a viable business model." The question sliced through his momentum, the skepticism lurking behind the voice a stark reminder of the uphill battle ahead. Jack paused mid-sentence, heart thumping violently. Here was the moment that would define not just this pitch, but the very trajectory of his journey. How would he respond? The weight of the moment hung heavy, and Jack had to choose. Would he retreat under pressure, or would he confront the skepticism head-on and illuminate the path forward? "Let me tell you why this can work." Jack took a deep breath. Grounding himself in conviction rather than doubt, ready to turn this challenge into an opportunity. As he spoke, conviction reverberating through his voice, he realized further growth awaited him, not just in professional achievements but within his personal journey. For as he embraced the adversity before him, one undeniable truth emerged: the confrontation extended beyond his pitch. It resonated deeply in the drumbeat of his life, a call to resilience, an awakening he was now determined to answer. Jack's heart raced as he understood that this was not just a pitch, but a pivotal moment of personal evolution. He prepared to push through the doubt and articulate a vision that demanded to be heard. Would this confrontation signal the beginning of a new chapter for him, or would it reveal deeper fissures in his resolve? Jack felt the audience's eyes drilling into him, the heavy gaze a crucible for self-doubt and determination. He took another deep breath, forcing himself to focus on the challenge that lay before him. The voice that questioned him, a voice alive with skepticism, became a sharp reminder of the larger battle he fought within. It wasn't merely an external conflict over his pitch, it paralleled his internal struggle to validate his dreams against the harsh realities of the business world. "Let me tell you why this can work," he said again, this time with the firmness that drowned out the doubt. The inquiry echoed in his mind, amplifying in its intensity. How could he convince investors to buy into a vision that looked beyond immediate profits? He felt the weight of responsibility surge in his chest as he shifted his focus. We live in an era where consumers are increasingly aware of their choices. They want to invest in companies with integrity. As he spoke, he planted concrete examples into his pitch: brands committing to sustainability that saw exponential growth due to their ethical practices. Jack felt energy radiate from him as he illustrated how sustainability wasn't just a moral choice, it was a financial strategy for people who cared about the future. With every point he made, a sense of clarity emerged within him. Each statistic, each story he told, was not merely an attempt to woo investors but a testament to a deeply held belief. The audience was no longer a looming mass but a collection of receptive minds that might be swayed by a shared vision of purpose. As he spoke, there was a moment when Jack looked towards the voice that had challenged him. It belonged to a middle-aged man who had leaned forward, arms crossed defiantly. Jack locked eyes with him, then continued, his voice a blend of apprehension and surging confidence. The data is irrefutable. Businesses adopting sustainable practices are outperforming those that don't. We're not just dreaming, we're setting a precedent. The tension in the room shifted, a few heads nodded in agreement. Energy built in the space as his story of purpose unfolded, emboldened by an innate passion for change, yet grounded by factual evidence. In that moment, he wasn't merely a single dad seeking approval. He transformed into a spokesperson for a new way of thinking about business, a leader advocating for bold, deliberate change. When the presentation wrapped up, an unexpected round of applause erupted, echoing louder than he'd imagined. Jack stepped off the stage, breathless with adrenaline. Each heartbeat propelled him closer to a sea of ambivalence. Did he just succeed, or was the atmosphere merely polite? As he navigated through the crowd, Sarah approached with a proud smile, but the weight of uncertainty still hung over him. That was incredible, Jack. You really connected with them, she said, yet a nagging thought threaded through Jack's mind, questioning his ability to translate admiration into actionable investment. He found himself at the edge of the venue, searching for comfort in solitude. Just then, a familiar face broke through the crowd. It was Emily, the investor he had consulted earlier. Jack, she started, her tone both serious and inviting. Can we talk? The apprehension returned. Of course. What would she say? Would it be praise, or a critique that deflated his earlier triumph? As they stepped away from the buzz of the event, seated at a quiet corner table, Jack felt a singular truth knitting itself into his thoughts. This conversation could lead to an opportunity he desperately needed, but it might simultaneously unveil the raw vulnerability he feared exposing. Jack braced himself, ready to confront whatever lay ahead. Would her words elevate him to the next phase of his journey, or would they anchor him back in uncertainty? As he prepared for her to speak, one question echoed amid the tumult of his emotions. What would this moment reveal, not about his pitch, but about himself? Emily studied Jack with an intensity that sent a ripple of anticipation coursing through him. You spoke passionately today, she began, her voice steady but revealing nothing. You outlined a vision that could resonate deeply with investors who value sustainability. Jack's heart quickened. This was the moment he'd been waiting for, but it felt heavy with expectations. Thank you, he replied, attempting to sound composed. I believe businesses can thrive while prioritizing ethics. She nodded, her brow furrowing slightly. Here's the thing, Jack. While your ideals are commendable, I've seen plenty of pitches that sound great on paper. The challenge is showing how these ideals can translate into tangible business success. Her words marked a crucial crossroads. Jack could have retreated, allowing those familiar insecurities to surface. Instead, he felt within him a burgeoning confidence, the culmination of weeks of wrestling with doubt. I understand, Emily. But consumers are demanding more transparency. Companies that ignore this trend will find themselves obsolete. The conversation shifted to the practicalities of implementing his vision, and Jack found himself in the flow of ideas. They discussed potential partners, innovative strategies, and social media campaigns to build a brand narrative centered on authenticity. For the first time in what felt like forever, Jack felt as though they were crafting something meaningful together. As Emily leaned in, she posed another challenge. Tell me, Jack. If you were to secure funding, how would you handle pushback from old-school investors, especially those resistant to change? The question hung heavy in the air, but Jack was ready. I believe it's fundamentally about demonstrating the success of aligning profit with principles. I wouldn't shy away from tough conversations. I'd show them the data, case studies, and the trajectory of businesses that have embraced sustainability. It's not just philanthropy, it's smart business. Forcing himself to maintain eye contact, he added, if I lose some investors along the way, it simply reaffirms the need for this vision. I'd rather stand firm for integrity than compromise for acceptance. Emily's reaction was unexpected, a flicker of admiration crossed her face. That's the kind of conviction I need to see from leaders. You're not only presenting a model. You're prepared to challenge an entire narrative. With each affirmation, Jack felt a sense of liberation. The burdens he carried began to lift, replaced by a profound clarity. He was no longer just a dutiful CEO, he was a challenger, an advocate for a cause. As their discussion drew to a close, Emily leaned back in her chair, her tone shifting to one of possibility. Let's set a follow-up. I want to see how this vision evolves, and I think there are ways I can help you articulate it to potential investors. Jack's pulse raced at the invitation. This was the opportunity he craved, a pathway toward creating substantial change. He felt a profound sense of alignment with his aspirations. He wasn't just aiming for personal achievement, he was advocating for a transformative narrative that could reshape the business landscape. Leaving the event, a rush of exhilaration coursed through him. The thrill of potential success was electrifying, but more importantly, it was a testament to his evolution. He had faced down doubt, skepticism, and the challenges of challenging a conventional mindset while staying true to himself. Jack had grown. The drive home was filled with thoughts about how to engage more stakeholders, to inspire them with his story, to demonstrate that moral integrity and commercial success are not mutually exclusive. He envisioned a consultancy that would not only provide sound business strategies but would also nurture future leaders, a legacy he could proudly share with Lily. Jack arrived home with a sense of fulfillment and clarity that had previously eluded him. He opened the door to their cozy home and found Lily seated with her art supplies, expertly blending colors to create vibrant images. "Daddy, look what I made!" she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Kneeling beside her, Jack gazed at her artwork, feeling their shared dreams coalescing in this moment. "It's beautiful, Pumpkin. You're so talented." As they sat together, he explained the importance of creativity in solving problems. He shared snippets from his day and the discussions about building a business that prioritized integrity, echoing the same principles he dreamed of imparting to her. "I want to show people that together, we can create something special, a world where kindness counts as much as success," he said, passion filling his words. Lily listened intently, her thoughtful demeanor mirroring his own journey of transformation. She grinned with that unmistakable childlike hope. "I believe in you, Dad. You can do it." In that embrace of affection and encouragement, Jack finally recognized his growth not just professionally, but personally. He was well on his way to being the man who could show his daughter that values hold as much weight as finances, that dreams rooted in integrity could flourish. As he tucked her in that night, his heart felt solid with confidence, knowing he was stepping into a future not defined by fear or compromise, but by purpose. Jack had taken the leaps of faith necessary to build a richer narrative. He had learned to not only endure challenges but to thrive within and around them. He knew the journey ahead would continue to be fraught with danger and discomfort, but he also understood that true transformation comes not only from ambition, but from a commitment to a belief system that could foster real change. As he closed Lily's bedroom door, he reflected on the many challenges he would still face. However, he felt prepared to meet them head-on, no longer just as a single dad but as a decisive leader. With newfound purpose, Jack sat at his desk that night, drafting his official business plan, one that outlined not just profitability, but principles. One that held promise. Today had marked the dawn of a new beginning, and tomorrow painted with infinite possibilities. Now it's your turn to be part of this transformative journey. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment about your reactions and theories about Jack's impactful transformation in the comments below. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let's make a difference together.